Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Virya Brahminam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our text? Mark? Can you folks hear me online?
It's 263.
263, okay. And will you help us out, Philippe? So we've been finishing the section of these wonderful meditation verses, which end with meditate on that in your mind.
That's right.
Sure.
Yaccha kastya na param paratparam pratyega rasamatma lakshanam satyachit sukham anantam avyayam brahma tattvamasi bhavayatmani. That beyond which there is nothing, which is above Maya, which is superior to its effects, the universe, which is the innermost subjective self, which is of one essence, which is continuous existence, knowledge, bliss, which is infinite and immutable. That Brahman thou art. Meditate on this in your mind.
All right, so let's again parse this one. The first idea.
That beyond which there is nothing.
So we say that the self is that by which everything is known, but also beyond which there is nothing to know. The buck stops here. If there's something beyond the self, who would be there to know it? So it is where knowledge ends, where knowledge stops. So everything that we know is known because I am there to cognize. But there's nothing beyond Brahman, nothing beyond the self to be known. Next idea.
Which is above Maya, which is superior to its effects.
Okay, now this is a very interesting point. Actually, the self is never really covered by Maya. And I can show you. So, do you exist? Yes. What's your existence? Miserable. Do you know the misery? Yes, I know the misery. Are you in bondage? Oh, yes, I'm in bondage. So even the most miserable of creatures never doubts I am. I know. It is the mind which is ever illumined by itself that has all these problems. The self, you are never without the experience. Experience is the wrong word. The I-ing of the self. Now, this is very important because many of us are waiting to have an experience. Now, granted, when the mind becomes very softly, we can begin to see the space between the thoughts. The attentive faculty is introverted. We begin to see, oh, there's nothing there. Chidakash, the space of pure awareness. I had a student here on Tuesday, and he was sitting right where Wendy is. And he says, I only seem to be clear on my self-nature when I'm here, Jim. So he goes out in the world and he feels like he gets deluded. So I asked him, well, did you disappear? Did you stop being conscious of your world and your senses and your thoughts and feelings? You went nowhere. So the point is, it's yourself. It's not a mind state. When are you ever not you? You can't lose yourself. Doesn't happen too frequently now, but in the old timey days when people used to do a lot of psychedelics. I remember one student came, oh, Jim, I dropped acid and I had an experience of myself. And for 20 years, I've been trying to get back there. Whatever you had happen, you could not have had a realization of your self-nature. Otherwise, you know right here, right now, it's myself. So Puneet went on a 10-day retreat. Her mind got very quiet, right? Mm-hmm. Now you're back here in the Vyavahara of the world. Different mind state?
Yes.
But have you gone anywhere?
Let me check. I don't think
so. So your current mind state, are you aware of it? You are above Maya. It never really touches you. You can't lose yourself. Who sees the phone? That's yourself. My only doubt is I don't know what that self is. I have all these stupid ideas about it. But once I clear those up to some degree, I get it's myself, my very experience of high. And are you ever not you? Now, your mind may become deluded. We get to 267, which we'll probably get to tonight. Talk about that. But even that never deludes the self. It's only the mind that has the problem. Next idea.
The universe, which is the innermost subjective self.
No, it is beyond Maya and its effects, which is the universe.
Sorry. Which is the innermost subjective self.
Yes. Self is not something up there in the sky. It's not something you can just see go by in meditation. It's perfect. What is it? That is always there. Our philosophical definition of real. Who remembers what the philosophical definition of real is, or one of them?
That which cannot be negated.
Yes, that which is never subject to negation. When are you ever not you? Next idea.
Which is of one essence.
Purnam, it's full of me. Our perceptions of the world are different. Our bodies are different. The prana is different. Feelings are different. Thoughts are different. But the witnessing consciousness in you is the witnessing consciousness in me, not like mine. It's one. Next idea.
Which is continuous existence, knowledge, bliss.
It never stops. It is beginningless, changeless, continuous, endless. As you move through your day, stop. Quieten the mind just a little bit. Check out yourself. Yep. Chidakash. There's still nothing there. Oh, Jim, I looked inside and everything was pink. Who saw the pink? Always the same. It never ceases to be. Next one.
I guess the only issue with the mind is that it doesn't like what it sees and it believes the things that is seen, which is the struggle.
The struggle ultimately is the mind has to understand that it cannot think a real thought. That's the thing. That's the fundamental renunciation of the mind. The mind commits psychic suicide. The mind, and the main thing it's got to see is no personal sense of self is real. All of its efforts, all of its structures, all of its plans, all of its dwelling in the past, projections into the future, opinions about the present, all of it without exception. It's not, it's just illusion. Doesn't mean it's not vivid. Is that useful? Mm-hmm. All right, is that, I think that's all the pieces of that verse, right?
Which is infinite and immutable.
Oh, yes. Same stuff. There's no end to the self, to I. Sometimes it feels like a point. Sometimes it feels like it's really, really big. truth is it's outside of time and space. It's infinite. All right, next verse.
Hey, Jim, one question.
Yes.
This is Atik. So you said, okay, the mind attributes itself to the qualities of the self, but it never is the self, right? That's essentially what you were sharing to Puneet's question.
The mind attributes to the self the qualities of the not self, meaning the mind, the basic idea is I think I'm my body. But if you really analyze, remember when we went through the 5 koshas, your body is an object of awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Remember our basic meditation, subject, object. I am always the subject. If I can see it, if I can be aware of it, that's not self. Take a deep breath. Are you not aware of the breath and the body? Who's aware of the body?
I am.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, the subtlest superimposition is that jiva bhavana, this thought that I'm a person. I'm good, I'm bad, I'm successful, I'm stupid, I'm smart, etc. And that's always qualities that, in fact, belong to the body or the subtle body, the mind and the intellect, never to the self. And don't believe me, Atik. Don't believe Shankara. Look. And remember, so those of us here, can you see the bowl on the table? Yes. You're not a bowl. You're the one looking at the bowl. It's so obvious. Did you all hear Mike cough? Mm-hmm. You're not Mike's cough. You're the one who heard it. Take a deep breath. Can you not know the breath in the body in the same way you knew the bowl or the cough? What's your energy like today? The pranamaya kosh. Who's tired? Who's full of energy? Do you not know the energy? What are you feeling? Joy, sorrow, boredom. Who knows the feelings? I do. I'm not my feelings. Think the thought. Mary had a little laugh. Did you not see that thought go by? Now think the thought. I'm a really good person. Do you see that's just a thought, like Mary had a little? Now think the thought. Oh, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that? Do you see that's just a thought that goes by? To what self did it refer? Who are you? Nothing there. Yet that no thing shines. It's pure awareness, this bhava, being. All right, next verse. This is 264.
Yeah. Utkam artham atmani swayam bhavyet prathi tyuktek vidhiya sanshadirahitam kurambuvat tena tattva nigamo bhavishyati. One must meditate with the intellect in one's heart on the truth inculcated above by means of scriptural arguments. By these means, one will realize truth without any doubts and the like, just like water in the hollow of one's hand.
So you can talk about the nature of water, but when you feel it in your hand, you know it. Now, when Shankara talks about meditate on this in your heart, he's not talking about the Anahata Chakra. He's not talking about the Hridaya in the physical location. Those of you who are doing some form of Raja Yoga, Kriya Yoga, you will be doing pranayamas and visualizations. That's a whole nother practice. What is the spiritual heart? What does it mean? The spiritual heart is when the intellect thins out and becomes thoughtless, meaning less thought. And the mind, the feeling nature, ceases all of its struggle. When the chitta becomes absolutely poised, that state is called your spiritual life. So what the yogi wants to do, bring that inner equipment into as quiet a state as possible. Who sees thoughts and the space between? So here we want to make sure we don't do our Vedanta just from the neck up. It's not just about quieting the flow of thought. It's also about deep surrender of the struggler. Everything just is. Now, why does he say using the instructions, the ideas that are in scripture? So that we don't get confused with various spiritual experiences. So those of you who studied Tripura Rahasyam, you know this text, David? Yes, no?
No.
Oh, it's fabulous. One of Ramana Maharshi's favorites. So there's the story of Hemaleka and Hemachuda in the beginning. You all remember? So Hemachuda is going to meditate, discover his self like Hemaleka suggested. So he goes up into his crystal tower and he finds a comfortable spot and he sits in meditation, plunges within. There's gold light. Comes out. Is this the self? Let me do it again. So he plunges within. There's darkness. What's this? The self of various kinds? Let me do this again. Goes deep into meditation again and falls asleep. Did that ever happen to you? It comes out. what is the self then? What is the self? Now, mind you, in a period of about 3 or 4 shlokas is all of our sadhana. So this, we move through various experiences that we have. But here, what Shankara is saying, it is the removal, meaning the withdrawal of my attention from the knowable of any kind. Then, in the spiritual heart, everything slows down. Egoism, all the craziness of my life, my judgments about the phenomenal world, all of that is dependent on the movement of the mind. Stop the mind and you stop. Then, when the mind returns, it reflects on this. Technical term is pratyabhinyana, recognition. Oh, there's nothing there. That no thingness was so vast and empty, peaceful. Chidananda Rupaham, my form is bliss consciousness. That's the profound insight that happens in the subtle intellect. All right, next verse.
Swabodhamatram parishuddhatattvam vignaya sandhe nipravaccha sainye tadashraya swatmani sarvada sthito vilapaya brahmani vishvajatam. In this cause-effect bundle, realizing knowledge absolute, free from ignorance and its effects, like the king in an army, and resting in that knowledge ever established in your own self, merge the universe into Brahman.
How do I merge the universe into Brahman? The universe for me is the product of the movement of the mind. Now, those of us who studied Mandukya Upanishad, David, have you done this one? Yes. So in the 4th chapter, Gaudapada uses this marvelous metaphor of the alata shanti, the quenching of the firebrand. So on Diwali or 4th of July, you've got a sparkler. It's at night, you can make a circle with the sparkler. You can make a figure 8 with the sparkler. And is the circle or the figure 8 really there? But it sure is seen. But I can't grab the circle from the sparkler and use it as a hula hoop. It's not anything real. It's an optical illusion. So the subtle intellect, when it is moving, is like the moving tip the sparkler. And this thing called mind appears, which is essentially Jiva Bhavana. I think I'm a person, a phenomenal world that's joy giving and misery producing and struggle. That's the world. That's the mind. That's samsara. That's the problem. And it is caused, it comes into existence because of the movement of the mind. Where does the circle go when I stop moving the sparkler?
Disappears.
Is it like a fishing rod where I go, is that what's going to happen? Am I going to merge the world into the self? The language falls short, doesn't go anywhere. Why? Because it was never really there. Now, there's a state called Tanu Manasaha. What's Tanu Manasaha mean? Anybody remember?
Coolness of mind.
Thinness of mind. Shitala Manasa is coolness of mind. So I like to use the example in the old-timey days in the dining room. I used to have lace curtains. Maybe you've been around long enough for my lace curtains. They rotted, so I had to change them. But you could stand on a sunny day in the dining room and look down to the patio, and you could see what was going on through the lace curtains. You didn't have to totally open the window or the curtains to see through the window. So also, some of us have the great punya for the mind to slip into nirvikalpa samadhi. Everything is. But actually, Tanu Manasa is incredibly efficacious. Just thin the mind enough so that you can see who is seeing that rising of a thought or feeling. You can still get a clear sense of your self-nature, which gives you something real with which to work. In the beginning, we have no sense, no real experience that I am that witnessing consciousness, that ground of being. I'm at the state called paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge. Brahman is. Once I can start to thin the mind, frequently will happen here. Satsang. Listen to the traffic. Who hears it? No person there. It's just being heard. So the jinyasu, the seeker after realization, over and over and over, keep merging the mind into yourself, pure consciousness. Now, you may have come to class tonight from your life out there with issues. And when we stop for a moment and just listen to the traffic, tune up for the moment. Where did they go? Do you see that?
They're gone.
Quenching of the fire breath. Stop the mind and you stop the world. You do this enough and you begin to see, even if the world is seen, it's not real. Meaning, when my mind throws up its silly thoughts, well, what are they going to think of me? That's one of the big ones. Am I okay? You don't believe it. Just set it aside. In the end, the only renunciation that we need to do, and the only renunciation that's efficacious, is to renounce the mind. That does not mean some sort of insensible state. It means when the mind itself sees its own unreality. The way to heal the mind is to get out of the mind, Swamiji used to say. Any thoughts on this? All right, was that 266?
That was 265.
266.
Buddhau guhayam sadasiddha lakshanam brahmasti satyam paramadvitiyam tadatmanayotra vasedugyahayam punarna tasyanga guha praveshaha. In the cave of the intellect is Brahman. Other than the gross and the subtle, existence supreme and non-dual. He no more enters the mother's womb who dwells in this cave as Brahman.
Okay, so this is a paraphrase from scripture. So this idea of the guhaya, the cave of the intellect. Gufa is the Hindi word, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a bear cave, the cave is context, bear is content. You have a lion cave. Cave is context, lion is content. What is the cave of the intellect? The intellect, which is the flow of thought. Where does it occur? Don't just come up with an answer. Look.
Seems empty.
Think the thought. 2 + 2 = 4. Where did it take place? Or listen to the traffic again. So when you can slow down and subtleize the intellect to the point, you see that it's just consciousness itself. Awareness itself. This is the cave of the intellect. Now, do you know consciousness? Consciousness one knows consciousness two. Do you have awareness like you have a nose? Awareness is Swayam Jyoti, self-evident, self-luminous, self-shining. You're in a bear cave. When the bear leaves, what's left? Cave of the intellect. Stop. See what's left. Next one.
New section. Give up vasanas, the method. Jnate vastunyapi balavati vasana nadiresha karta bhoktyapya hamukiti dridayasya sansara hetuhu pratyak drishtya atmani nivasata sapaneya pratnayat yanmukti rahustadaiha munayo vasana tanavam yat. Even after the realization of truth, there remains a powerful, beginningless, deep impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause for rebirth. By living in a subjective state of steady identification with the self, it has to be conscientiously removed. That which is the annihilation of the vasanas here and now is called liberation by the sages.
So, what Shankara is talking about now is what I call the yo-yo state. Sometimes it's all very clear, then I get totally identified again. Very clear. And I'm all triggered. It's all very clear. And then I get identified as I am a knower of it all. Sound familiar? This shloka is addressed to those of us who have some direct experience. As I said earlier, you have something real with which to work now. So even after I've had some of these glimpses, these intimations of my real nature, there exists a deep impression in the unconscious that one is karta bhokta, doer and the experiencer. Bhokta literally means enjoyer, but here it means experiencer. And here Shankara says, which is the cause for rebirth. It doesn't mean you're going to come back as a lizard. It means I re-identify. You're here in class tonight. Time's tuned up. It's very clear. Yes, I am that ground of being, that space of consciousness. And then tomorrow, I think I'm Jim or Wendy or Mike. That's what Shankar was talking about. I have become reborn back into body identification. Are we clear about what he's talking about? Sometimes it's clear, sometimes I'm all deluded again. Okay. This is the cause of getting identified, that I have this deep impression of Jiva Bhavana, that I'm the doer and the experiencer. What's the solution? Steady, continuous, subjective identification with the self. Tune up the mind. Keep the mind in this meditative state. All the time. Drown the mind. There's a wonderful story. Many of you heard me tell it before. So Swamiji was riding in a car with a couple, and my dear friend Vilasini, who had the wonderful punya to be Swamiji's personal assistant. She was 20 years old. She knows Radha. Dharma sisters together. So Swamiji always rode shotgun. He was in the front passenger seat. And the husband was driving, and the wife was in the back next to Vilasini. You know, when we got to a point where our minds were deeply introverted, we could tune up. Swamiji would just scoop us up and keep him near him. It's so easy to stay tuned up around him. So Vilasini's back there and she's in deep meditation. And this woman's going, how'd you get all into this? Oh, you're not even Indian. Swamiji turns around and goes, will you shut up? Can't you see she's in meditation? Now, these were the host couple, probably giving him lots of money. Lost them, as you would say. Sometimes we can only keep the mind in that state. Around the teacher. Must get established in it ourselves. And then it may be only for minutes at a time. And we expand. Not only a full knower of the Supreme, but who has retired into the Supreme. This burns up the vasanas more immediately, more thoroughly, more quickly than anything else. So he ends the shloka saying, it is the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that it's considered liberation by the wise. Now, when we've studied with Vasana earlier in the book, Vasana has two powers. Who remembers what the two powers are?
Veiling and projection.
Varana Shakti, Vikshepa Shakti Chakti. So the veiling power is in the mind, the non-apprehension of my essential nature. That immediately follows the projecting power. I think I'm a person. How do I know my mind is under the influence of vasana? I think I'm a person. That's it. The various texture of the projection of the vasana is not nearly as important as being able to do the discrimination, viveka, and dropping it. All through the day. All through the day. And we stay with this spiritual axiom that if I am disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the klesha, the affliction. Meaning, I'm the one with the vasana. I'm the one with the attachment, the expectation, identification. It's axiomatic. Listen carefully. I'm not saying that the world and its people are not oftentimes quite wrong. But if I'm upset, that's my guru. Okay. Now, some gurus, they will poke at us. Especially when we're reacting and identifying. But don't worry, life does the best job of it all. Because it's my own karma that will trigger my reactivity. And it's always the same. Let go, keep your heart open, and the identification. Be empty. Have a mind like a wicker basket with water going into it. Just let it all go. Very important shloka, one of my favorites in this whole text. Any questions on the practice that's implied here? All right, next verse. 268.
He has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, you mentioned and described this practice. It's great. Can you lead us through it for a bit right this minute?
The practice?
Can you walk us through it verbally?
Sure. So first of all, you can feel when your mind starts to extrovert. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Okay, so it into the world. Stop that. Tune up the mind. This is your Shama, Dhamma, Upadati that we had in the qualifications of the fifth student. And then when the personal sense of self arises, hang on to this thought. If I feel like a person, I'm deluded. Rather than resolve the struggle of ego, drop it. It is more important to drop the personal sense of self and to solve your worldly problems. Give that to God. It's a simple practice, but not easy. Does that make it a little clearer, David?
Excellent, thank you.
My friend Justin came up with one that I just love. Ramana Maharshi says, Koham, who am I? Justin says, who cares? It's always the ego. Yeah, but what about? Yeah, but what about? So watch out for the demon. Yeah, but terrible demon. Rob you of your serenity. Yeah, but what about? Okay, next verse.
Aham mameti yo bhavo dehakshadanatmani adhyasoyam nirastavyo vidusha swatmanishtaya. I and mine, this notion in the body, sense organs, etc., which are the not self, this superimposition the wise man must end by identification with his own self.
Yes. So this is Shankara telling us how to do it. Jiva Bhavana, egoism, ahankriti, shows up as I-ness and minus. I have no thoughts or feelings of my own. Let it all go. No problem is important enough for me to lose my serenity. Ever. Now, if you get annoyed, if you get upset, don't let ego then come in and say, I'm a terrible yogi. Just drop it as soon as you can. I think I'm a person. Egoism will always tell me I have to resolve the struggle of ego. I'm a person, I've got a goal, and I've got to struggle toward it. Shankara is saying, stop it. And do as you will at the level of the body. Doesn't matter. Next verse.
Gyatvam swayam pratyak atmanam buddhi tadvritti sakshinam soham ityaiva sadvritya atmanyatmam iti jahim. Realizing your innermost self as the witness of the intellect and its disturbances and ever maintaining the thought that I am, shed your identification with the not self.
Soham. Saha aham. I am that. When the mind goes, the intellect goes, see it. Stay identified as the witness. Now, some of us have the great punya to have a more simple life. This is the advantage of things like an ashram or being retired. Others of us, we have careers, we have responsibilities, but it's still possible. Never forget that all of the rishis wrote those Upanishads, without exception, were married. Had cows to milk, fields to take care of, and children. Oh. So being able to be a renunciate is easier, frankly, but not necessary. And you don't need to change your circumstances. They will change if they're supposed to. At this point in our sadhana, just put your life on automatic pilot. Take care of your responsibilities. But never let it get to the point. Yeah. What do you do for that? Remember, yoga is always done in the now. Oops. Wake up. Okay, next one.
लोकानुवर्ततं त्यक्त्वा देहानुवर्तनं शास्त्रानुवर्तनं त्यक्त्वा स्वाध्यायसापनयं कुरु. Leaving your involvement with social formalities, leaving all ideas of beautifying the body, leaving aside unnecessary study of the Shastras, banish the superimposition which has crept up on the self.
So, the way I like to look at it, you want to see your body like a car. The body is not bad. Shankar is not saying to quit bathing and quit combing your hair and not to brush your teeth. He's not saying don't show up for work. He's not saying you don't have to pay your PG&E bill. If you are in the situation again, whether you're not working, you're retired, or you're living in an ashram, the literal meaning of this verse is fine. But the implied meaning for the rest of us. If you have a car, what happens if you don't change the oil?
Starts running.
Yeah. You don't keep the tires inflated. You don't put gas in it. Your car is no longer a useful vehicle. The body is essentially an instrument for realization of the self. Middle path. Too much, don't eat too little. Sleep too much, don't sleep too little. But you get to look at whether or not you're buying clothes to go to work because it's appropriate if you're a manager to look a certain way. Or I'm looking for attention. I want women to think I'm hot. I want men to think I'm hot. It's one of the beauties of being a brahmachari or a swami. You don't have to worry about what you're going to wear. What was his name? Was it Zuckerberg who wore the same thing every day?
Steve Jobs too.
Steve Jobs, what? Just jeans and a gray t-shirt?
Black polo kind of thing.
Yeah.
Turtleneck.
It was all about, so he didn't have to think about it. I mean, he had 10 of each, so he did change his clothes. But the idea here is what's appropriate for your station in life. But that's different than taking 45 minutes in the morning to fix your hair. And social interaction. There's nothing wrong with community. The Buddhist tradition, we have the 3 refuges. What are the 3 refuges?
Buddha, Sangha.
Dharma. But don't forget the Sangha. In Tripura Rahasyam, what is the root cause of liberation?
Sadhu Sangha.
Sadhu Sangha, which means what?
Holy company.
Holy company, association with the wise. So there's a valuable way to have community. But you know, if you're going out to the clubs on the weekends and getting smashed, don't make yourself miserable. Go party hardy till you don't need to do it anymore. Then come and study the Vedanta. There's nothing more painful than a belly full of desire and a mind full of Vedanta. It's a very painful state. But here, Shankara's, he's taken us through a progression. When we get to, what are we, 268, 269?
270.
270. He's assuming you're serious now. So dial down all that external distraction so that you have more time for meditation. Any thoughts on this? All right, this is a good place to stop. What verse are we on for next week?
271.
271. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.